Hello everyone, Pastor Matthew here. Sorry for being a little bit late on this next part in the book of Judges. Just some different things coming up and having to do just with some additional services at church. But I want to welcome you all once again. We've been going through the book of Judges, mostly because we want to see how God interacts with his people, how he is continually faithful even when his people are faithless. But more importantly, or maybe not more importantly, but on that same importance, we see how God uses very extraordinary people to accomplish his purposes. On our first lesson, we saw how God used a man named Ehud, who was left-handed, so considered evil and a pariah in his society, who was an assassin, for he killed the king through very, assassin-like means, and how even with all of this, God saved his people through Ehud. Now, this is a good thing, because actually after Ehud, there was another minor judge by the name of Shagmar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. There's actually a period of time now where Israel is faithful to God. Why wouldn't you be? He literally delivered you from the hands of the Moabites. You think they would get the picture, but they don't. And so, then the people of Israel did again what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, the king of Canaan. Judges 4 is the next big judge. But it isn't who you think. Once again, God will show his power not through the strong arms of mighty men or the vast power of armies, but through assassination and duplicitous means, but not through a man. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died, chapter 4. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his armies was at Sisera, where lived Harash-Hayogim. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help, for the commander, had 900 chariots of iron, and he oppressed the people of Israel cruelly for 20 years. One thing you have to understand about ancient warfare is whoever had chariots pretty much won the battles. Chariots were akin to tanks, essentially, of the ancient world. They would roll over armies. You would use them almost having blades on the wheels and create a spinning death where you could literally mow down hundreds. You usually have two strong war horses pulling them along the way, cutting a large army and a large force down to size very quickly. On top of that, Canaanites were probably one of the most battle-hardened of all of the tribes that Israel would ever fought. They were ruthless, they were wicked, they were relentless, and they had technology on their side. This was not the Bronze Age, this is the Iron Age at this point. But Israel was not at that age yet. Canaanites had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior battlefield tactics. So how in the world is God going to pull out this one? It's already looking worse than it was with Ehud and the Moabites. It's interesting. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at the time. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. This is kind of interesting. We right here have, during the time, these 20 years, where, Jabin's commander was oppressing Israel. At this time, Israel had a leader, a judge, one who was a prophetess. So God talked to them directly, talked to her directly, and it was a woman named Deborah. This is extraordinary and very extraordinary. Because this is not how it was done back then. Great leaders were men, not women. More so, God is talking to her directly. She's a prophetess, so she hears the word of God and gives it out to the people. She also was very, very well liked, and in fact was well respected within the Israelite community. Deborah was not some no-name person, a no-name woman. This one, she was respected. She was sought after, and she actually had a place where people could come and they could seek her advice. She even had called the Deborah, the palm of Deborah, a palm tree that seemingly was so associated with Deborah herself. But she was judging Israel, and no one was really doing their job. There was someone who was supposed to be doing the job, though. She sent and summoned for her judgment. She sent and summoned Barak, the son of Abinam, from Kadesh Naphtali, and said to him, "Well, has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you? Go gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you near the river Kishon, with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand." This is not Deborah saying that she's going to do this. Deborah is once again speaking for God. She's a prophetess. And she is saying to this guy, Barak, who is supposed to be who God told, hey, go and conquer this country. Go and conquer Canaan again. You will defeat Sisera. I will make sure of this. Just go out and do this thing. Put your trust in me, and I will deliver to you this army. He wasn't doing it, though. In fact, Deborah summoned him to her. And she expected this to happen. It wasn't a, oh, please come here. It was a, no. You, mighty general of our entire army of Israel, come here. We gotta talk. Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." And Deborah said, "I surely will go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called out Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 men went up at his heels, and Deborah went up with him. So, now with all of this going on, with everything that is happening, Deborah is saying, do this. And Barak is saying, I'm not going to budge unless you come with me. So not only is Barak not trusting in the Lord, he needs now some help. Something that is he's going to have and saying, hey, I need some help. I don't trust God, but if you come with me, I'm sure that God will be on my side. And Deborah is shaking her head, saying, what in the world are you doing? Nevertheless, I will come with you, but because I am coming with you, God is not going to give your name honor and glory, but a woman's, mine. Oddly enough, when people tell this story of the judges, Barak is merely a footnote, and Deborah is the one who is remembered more. So now Heber and Kenite had separated from the Kenites, the descendants of Hoab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched them in Istar in the Zoak of Zanite. It's kind of like there. So they're in a place, they're in a valley where all of the armies now are gathered. When Sisera was told that Barak, the son of Abinam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called all of his chariots, and the 900 chariots of iron, and all of the men who were with him, from Harosheth Hayugim to the river Kishon. And Deborah said to Barak, up, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Does not the Lord go out before you? So this finally gets Barak moving, and he goes down the mountain with 10,000 men following him. Still only men. No really big chariots, no horses, just men. And the Lord routed Sisera and all of his chariots and all of his army before Barak by the edge of the sword. And Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot. And Barak pursued the chariots and the army of Harosheth-Hagoyim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not a man was left. Very good. Barak is seemingly following after what God is saying. Deborah said to him, "Hey, battlefield commander, go and do your job." And the battlefield commander goes, "Okay." And Barak went down. Army is destroyed. He's given into the hand of the Lord. Everything should be good, right? Not yet. Remember, a judge not only takes care of the armies of the enemies of God, but he also takes usually care of the commander. Ehud took care of the king of the Moabites by gutting him with a dagger. Sisera got away from this battle. There's all of his men left, but all of his men are dead. He's still alive. But Sisera fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael came out and met Sisera and said to him, "Oh, turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me, do not be afraid." So he turned aside and went into her tent, and she covered him with a rug. This is important. Deborah said that she would be giving the hand of Israel's enemies in the hand of a woman, into Deborah's hands. But it wasn't through Deborah's hands that this would happen. Deborah herself was not going to do the deed. Instead, she proclaimed that it would be into a woman's hands, in Deborah's judgment. And here's where it gets very good. Sisera, a man who is running away, goes into a woman's tent, the wife of a man, and he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." So he opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, "Stand at the opening of my tent, and if any man comes and asks, 'Is anyone here?' say, 'No.'" But Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand. Then she went softly to him, and drove the peg into his temple until it went down to the ground, while he was lying fast asleep in weariness. And so he died. And behold, as Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you are seeking." So he went into her tent, and there lay Sisera dead, with a tent peg in his temple. So on that day God subdued Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the people of Israel. And the hand of the people of Israel pressed harder and harder against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. Once again, you can imagine the audacity of what the Bible is saying here, because it wasn't a very quick thing. It was quick for Sisera, but it wasn't pretty. Jael took a tent pole, took a hammer, and if you can, anyone who goes to camping, those little spikes, think of a wooden one. Pop, pop, pop. Through the temple, into the brain, and out, so literally his head was stuck in the ground. And so Israel, enemy, was given to the hand of a woman. Now, once again, this is insane. Back in the day, that did not happen. But it showed how far Israel had fallen. No other person would go up and do what they needed to do. They were all afraid. But Deborah took action and said, "Go and do this." Jael took action and killed the greatest enemy of Israel at the time. And so they celebrated and sang. You would think that'd be enough. They would even go on and do an entire song. Chapter 5 in Judges is a beautiful poem, a beautiful song about how much that God has done for Israel. They sing great, wonderful songs of how much God has won the day. A couple of key lines from it are this: "Tell of it, you who ride on white donkeys, who sit on rich carpets, and you who talk by the way." This is chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. "To the sounding musicians at the watering places, there they repeat the righteous triumphs of the Lord, the righteous triumphs of his villagers in Israel. Then down the gates march the people of the Lord." Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, break out in song. Arise, Barak, lead away your captives, O son of Abonam. And the other ones, the most one at the end, which literally should have the where Israel is right now. So may all your enemies perish, O Lord, but your friends be like the sun, as he rises in his might. And the land had rest for 40 years. 40 years. That's all it took. 40 years after two women successfully saved all of Israel. 40 years of God being with his people, continually being helping them. But the cycle continues. With Deborah's story and Jael's story, we see once again God at work. We see him using the most smallest of people. A simple wife, minding her own business, became one of the greatest champions of Israel. A woman, a prophetess, a judge of Israel, was raised to a higher stature than a man of Israel. And God was with both of them, and blessed both of them, more so than Barak, because people remember Deborah more than him, because she was faithful to God. You can actually see this through the rest of the Bible. There are many examples where the women of the Bible are far more faithful to the Lord than the men. We'll actually see it again in the book of Judges, but some other examples include, well, first Deborah, the entire book of Ruth, the book of Esther. Then we also have others. Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, who had greater faith in God than her own husband, a priest to God. Mary. And also those who would become church leaders in the New Testament. A woman named Priscilla, with her husband Aquila, would actually help found the Roman Church in the city of Rome, in the heart of the Roman Empire. There would be others who would teach young men all about God, about how he would do great things. Many, many times God uses the most extraordinary people in our lives, and he uses everything to his glory. No one should ever feel that one person can't be this wonderful way of God speaking through them. For God spoke through the prophets of old, through prophetesses of old. But now in these last days he speaks to us through his Son. There's more to come in the book of Judges. A lot more. We've had two major judges so far, but they encompass a very small portion of the book. Ehud was one chapter, and technically Deborah was only one chapter too. She was only, the song was what was sung about her, but she herself was only one chapter of action. The next one is different, for he will have 3 chapters devoted to him. One who is the first, mostly well-known judge, the Judge Gideon, a mob boss of extraordinary means. But that's a story for another day. Until then, may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and give you all his peace. Amen.